Okay, so I want to recap some things from scene three, which you guys were supposed to have read. You did the little quiz about that the other day, which most people did pretty well on. If you have any questions, let me know so we can sort them out. But I want to point out a few things. So obviously, this is now a follow up to the banishment, and it's interesting. Well, there's a few things that are interesting. It's interesting that he says at the beginning that Romeo is wedded to calamity. Um, that idea of being married to calamity, calamity is the same as like disaster. So when he says you're married to disaster, we heard that back in their wedding scene when he said, these violent delights have violent ends. Oh, look at this. They really need a better tool for this. Violent delights have violent ends. And in their triumph die like fire and powder, which as they kiss, consume. That's an explosion. That's what happens when fire and powder kiss. They blow up. So yeah, there you go. So this is the idea. When he married them, he said it was going to be a disaster. And now he said you're married to disaster. So yeah, we've seen that. And then he wants to know, what is the prince's doom? In other words, what is the prince's consequence? What's the prince saying? Now we know the prince could have said the punishment for this is that Romeo is going to be put to death, because we have said that the punishment in Verona for getting in fights in the street and blah, 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 blah is to be killed. And he killed Tybalt, so he could kill him, but he doesn't. He just kicks him out. And so he comes down here, and here it is. It's not Body's death, but Body's banishment. He's not gonna kill you. He's just gonna boot you out of town. So you have to put this in context. He's being told he can no longer stay in Verona. So this is sort of like you are dating this person, and now you're told, nope, you cannot live in Mount Laurel anymore. You have to go to, like, I don't know, Medford. That's it. That's all he has to do. He's going to go over to this other town called Mantua. And in Mantua, he can live happily ever after. He just cannot come back into Verona, which, of course, we'll see how that happens. And so his first response is banishment. He repeats the word, like, wait, I've been kicked out. Be merciful. Say death, as if death would be more merciful than banishment. This is an example of Romeo's melodramatic nature and the fact that he thinks there is more than death in the word banishment. He would rather be dead than kicked out, because, of course, if he's kicked out, that means he cannot live without Juliet, because Juliet's in Verona. So Romeo then goes on, there is no world without Verona walls. Like, there's no world outside of the walls of Verona. Hold on. No, there are. There's like a big wide world outside of Verona, all kinds of towns you could go to and live in instead. And so he goes on this whole melodramatic thing about, that's death mistermed, by saying I'm banished is the same as cutting my head off with a golden axe. And then Friar Lawrence is like, dude, check yourself. Oh, deadly sin, oh, rude unthankfulness. And he goes on to explain, like, they were going to kill you, and instead they're kicking you out. That's a good thing. And then back to the melodrama. No, it's torture. It's not mercy. And this is an interesting little word. So he says that all of these little things get to live in Verona. Every cat, dog, and little mouse, every unworthy thing lives here in heaven, Verona, where Juliet is, and may look on her, Juliet, but Romeo may not. More validity, more honorable state, more courtship lies in carrion flies than in Romeo. Carrion flies. So flies, like the bugs. Carrion flies are the kind of flies that land on dead things. So he's saying the flies that land on dead things will be more likely to land on Juliet's hand or on her lips. Ew. When was the last time a fly actually landed on your mouth? Never, because you would have waved it off. Unless you're dead, like Juliet. So here again is that strange death talk that keeps coming up throughout the play. They keep talking about their own deaths without really hearing it. So there's death again. So then he gets even more dramatic. He says, don't you have any poison I could take? Don't you have a sharp knife I could use? Don't you have any other way that I could die beside killing me with the word banished. I would rather die than be killed. So again, suicidal Romeo. And then Friar Lawrence is going to kind of smack him down because, Romeo continues to insist that it's worse and so on and so forth. If you were as young as I was, just an hour married, in love like me, and then banished, you would fall on the ground the way that I do, taking the measure of an unmade grave, getting ready for my own death and burying myself. So then in comes the nurse. They have this conversation. The nurse explains that Juliet's been crying. Hopefully you got all this when you read it. And then here's when it all goes sideways. Oh, tell me, friar, tell me in what vile part of my anatomy doth my name lodge? Tell me that I might sack the hateful mansion. So, and then he draws his sword. That's not true. He draws his dagger. MIT got it wrong. It's not his sword he draws, it's his dagger. So he's standing there with his dagger saying, tell me where my name is. Remember Juliet's whole thing about a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. What's in a name? If you weren't, that whole thing about why do you have to be a Montague? The whole root of this problem is that he's a Montague and she's a Capulet, and that Montagues and Capulets cannot get together. That equals bad. No. But they obviously want to be in love, and so they have a problem because they're in love, but that can't work out. And so he's saying, how do I get rid of the name Montague? Because if I got rid of the name Montague, I'd be with her. But then he draws his knife, which is basically a threat that he's going to kill himself. And Friar Lawrence tells him to hold his desperate hand. In other words, chill out. And then he reprimands him. And he gives him a whole bunch of reasons. First of all, he calls him a woman, using the stereotypes of the time. You're acting like a woman. And then he gives a whole bunch of reasons why he should be happy, which comes after this whole big, long thing about calling him a woman. And then he says, here we go. Number one, thy Juliet is alive, for whose dear sake thou was but lately dead, there art thou happy. You should be happy she's alive. Number two, Tybalt was going to kill you, but you killed him instead. You should be happy about that too. Number three, the law says you should be killed, but instead you just got kicked out of town. That's a win. Happiness is all over you, but you behave like a sullen wench. Yikes. Take heed, for such die miserable. People who act like you die miserable. Another hint of the pending death. But then he gives him a plan. Go, get to thy love to thy chamber as decreed. Ascend her chamber, hence and comfort her. He's telling her to go to Juliet's house in Verona. Even though Prince Aeschylus has said, if he's caught in Verona, that hour is his last, I will kill him. He says, don't stay too long in the morning because you have to sneak out to a town called Mantua. You're going to hang there until I can blaze your marriage, number one. Tell everybody what happened. I'm going to tell everybody in town that you're married. Two, reconcile your friends. I'm going to get the Montagues and the Capulets to be friends. Three, beg pardon of the prince. I'm going to get the prince to forgive you for the fact that you killed Tybalt. And then I'm going to bring you back with 1,000 times more joy than thou wentst forth with lamentation. Woo! That sounds like a lot of joy. Sounds like quite a party they're going to throw for Romeo. Surprise! Hey! Woohoo! Those are supposed to be. I don't know what that is. And then the scene just sort of wraps up with him saying, all right, you go to her by the break of day, get out to Mantua, and we're all good. So it's important to consider the oversimplification of this plan, the fact that he's just going to tell everybody they're married. He's going to get the Capulets and the Montagues to now suddenly be friends. He's going to get the prince to pardon him. I don't think it's going to be all quite that easy. So we'll have to see what happens with Friar Lawrence's plan. So after this scene, this is scene 3. Scene 4, you don't really have to read. Well, no, you do, but it's only a page long. But all you have to realize about it is the timing. So look at scene 4 and look at what's happening with the timing, because Lord Montague Lord Capulet is about to compress the time here because he's about to arrange for Paris to get married pretty quickly to Juliet. And of course, Juliet is already married. So that's going to cause a problem. So read that short little scene, and then there's going to be a scene for you to watch. I found the Zeffirelli version online, the old one. I can't find the new one. Feel free to go and find it if you have access to that. It's on Netflix and stuff, but I can't find just the scene excerpted. So anyway, after you watch this video, check what else is on Classroom.